Madam Chair, we are now recording the meeting and streaming live on YouTube. You may begin when you're ready.
Good morning. Welcome to the Metro Plan Orlando CAC meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. My name is Nelisa Council, and I will be chairing the meeting today in the absence of my chair, Dr. Dan Stevens, who is not able to make it today. This meeting is fully in person, so all committee members are asked to be present in the Metro Plan Orlando boardroom. We still have a virtual participation for the public. I'll ask all committee members to please speak clearly and use your microphones so those that are joining virtually can hear us. Now it's time for the Pledge of Allegiance. Today I'll ask Miss Misty to say the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Misty. There are two public comment points in the meeting. Members of the public who are here in person and want to make a comment should submit a speaker card to Ms. Rachel Frederick. Those attending on Zoom who want to speak and can use the raise hand feature on the Zoom screen. This month, we are continuing to welcome new members to the CAC. We have some appointments from Orange County and City of Orlando. I'm going to introduce each one of them. Mr. Victor Gonzalez Galeano. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Morning, everyone. Victor Gonzalez Galeano, representing Orange County. Excited to be here and learning and contributing to the community hour.
Thank you so much. Miss Jeanette Frivola? Frivola, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeanette Frivola. I'm representing Orange County. Glad to be here, living out in the West Orange, Windermere area. So we're very excited to have somebody represent us at this point.
Thank you. And Miss Misty Heath, thank you for saying the pledge today. On the spot.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Misty Heath. I'm a representative from the City of Orlando. In my day-to-day job, I am the Soto Main Street Director here just south of downtown. And I'm also a resident here in downtown Orlando and the Solaire building. So live right here. I got to walk here this morning.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank
you
you
for
so
having
much.
me.
Thank you so much. At the June 12th Metro Plan Board meeting, Chair Dan Stevens shared comments from our last meeting about the wanting more multi-module projects to make it into the feature of the TIPs and the discussion about terminology of some modes that don't really reflect the current use. We have a full agenda today, so I hope that we can move through it as effectively as possible. Remember, if you have any questions that don't get answered in the meeting, Ms. Horn will follow up with the presenters and get those answered for you. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Ms. Mary Horn of the Metro Plan staff, who will go over our agenda review. Ms. Horn.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you, members and everybody who is with us today, both in the room and online. We are glad you're here. We currently need a quorum of 16 members in the room to conduct votes. As always, it's very important to RSVP for our meeting so that we can prepare. There are still Zoom and YouTube options for the public. At your places, you have one sheet today, which is will be part of the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan presentation, talking about the indicators to support our goals and objectives for that long-range plan. So when that comes up, you will know what to do with it. We had a very successful webinar on June 4th with traffic safety advocate Melissa Wandall. For those who couldn't join, I recommend that you watch the recording on our YouTube channel. And likewise, on June 13th, We have a video there from the Bike Walk Central Florida Wheel of Achievement Awards, where Blue Zones researcher Dan Burden spoke. It was an inspiring address, all about walking and cycling safely. And you can view all these safety speakers with our handy Vision Zero Central Florida playlist that we have set up on the YouTube channel. We are taking a little hiatus from the safety speakers at the moment. You'll be hearing more about the plan, which is moving for approval. And then we'll be back. We have some more planned to start probably in the late summer or fall, most likely beginning with a panel to discuss speeding. On June 18th, we had a virtual public meeting on the Transportation Improvement Program. I think I saw a couple of our members in the virtual room. Thank you for attending and getting that extra background on the TIP. Jason Sartorial will tell you more about that later in today's agenda. 2 quick housekeeping notes. Our office will be closed on July 4th, as you might expect. And the Metro Plan Orlando board meeting, should you wish to tune in or attend, which is on July the 10th, will begin at 8 a.m. instead of the customary 9 a.m. And this is to accommodate some of the meetings of our partners that are also going on that day. I would like to turn it over at this point to Mr. Alex Trauger, who's going to present our safety moment. Alex?
Good morning, everyone. This has been a fixture of our advisory committee and board agendas, the safety moment for the past 12 months, and kind of pinch hitting for Mike Wilson today. He's typically he's our in-house safety expert, and Mike's actually at a conference which focuses on traffic control devices for our most vulnerable users. So he's deploying his time on a national board there, which is good to see. And this is also the first time on a committee agenda in the past year that you have not had a Vision Zero Central Florida status update. So we're going to use our safety moment for purposes of today's agenda to talk a little bit about the Vision Zero plan as it relates to kind of the typical calendar. It is vision it is a commercial vehicle or kind of trucking awareness for safety. So kind of keep that in mind when you're on the road. Those truckers certainly, commercial vehicle operators certainly do that as their livelihoods are on the line as well. But again, today we are going to focus here just a couple moments on the Regional Vision Zero Action Plan. Again, for the past 12 months, we've been providing you status updates, so kind of you've rode along the way. But again, as Mike has kind of leading off with some of the statistics, our vision is zero, and our plan that will be coming out soon will focus on a trajectory looking at Vision Zero by 2050. But as it relates to the situation as it is today, and as you've seen in the past, 41% of our traffic fatalities occur on just 2%. It's a very small percentage of our entire regional network. So that focus is going to allow us to kind of do targeted planning, targeted investment moving forward. But it's also important as we've dug into the data, where are these crashes occurring? What are some of the common factors? And we saw almost half of these, as you've seen in more detailed presentations, half of these traffic fatalities are behavioral, whether it's distraction, intoxication, or other careless or reckless driving behaviors. So again, we are traffic. It's often said we are congestion, but we all are also, cause of many of these factors. And until the human is outside of the driving situation, we need to focus our energy to make sure we can do what we can to change that. So again, we've been developing a regional Vision Zero action plan at the same time in parallel as our county governments, as well as each of our municipal partners have been developing localized Vision Zero action plans. But our overarching regional plan is really going to focus on a couple core areas. It's going to continue high emphasis planning. Again, using the data-driven approach, we're going to kind of continue that focus with targeted planning and as well as additional analytics to kind of better understand and contextualize the situation. Continue our public outreach. We were able to reach a lot of people over the past year to share their stories, but to also kind of impart our work and how they can improve the situation. And investment, kind of why we're here. And you'll be taking action on some investment documents later on the agenda, but focusing both at the regional level, but also with our local partners on quick build solutions. while we're looking and developing those larger, bigger, more transformational projects, we've identified within the Vision Zero Action Plan countermeasures on our state highway system and other high injury networks to start making solutions happen in the near term. So you're going to be seeing that in a tangible Vision Zero Action Plan here in the next few weeks. So by July 11th, following our board meeting, possibly sooner to our advisory committees, we'll be distributing that Vision Zero Action Plan. Give you a few weeks to review it in its form. You've seen other pieces of it over the past year. And then our hope is to bring that back at your next agenda, during our next agenda cycle. Your August advisory committee meeting will be asking for your approval. But again, we'll be following up. You're definitely going to hear from us, likely from Mary Ann, as well as broader communications from Metro Plan Orlando. So stay tuned for more. And again, we just wanted to use this time to let you know that we're in the kind of landing gear down and developing the plan, and we're going to be releasing to that for your feedback here in the next few weeks. So thank you so much.
I'd like to turn on my microphone and then welcome Ms. Amy Beckman from the Florida Department of Transportation, who has a bit of a special report for us. And this is also something that you have at your places. So if you think we're out there with the 2050 plan, she's going to start talking to you about 2055. So get ready. Amy, take it away.
Thank you so much, Mary Ann. Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome to our new members. My name is Amy Beckman, as Ms. Horn said. I am your FDOT District 5 liaison to Metro Plan. So if you have any questions, please feel free to come up and talk to me. I'm more than happy to hear them. So I am here today to talk to you. Sorry, I'm not used to the clicker. There we go. All right, about our 2055 Florida Transportation Plan. It will update and be a comprehensive statewide blueprint guiding Florida's 30-year transportation future. The FTP's transportation policy lays the foundation for investments in the FDOT's work program. It's updated every 5 years. This plan will be developed through steering committee guidance, focus group support, and comprehensive community engagement, both partner and public engagement. This plan will be developed over the next 18 months to be adopted in November of 2025. So just a month shy or before Metro Plan's own long-range transportation plan is adopted in December of 2025. The 2055 FTP will be guided by a streamlined steering committee in collaboration with FDOT to provide input that will guide the development of goals, objectives, and policies that make up the plan. Commissioner and Metro Plan board member Maya Uribe is actually serving on that steering committee, so she is a good point of contact for you as well. The Florida Transportation Plan is more than just a plan, of course. It is a forum that aims to connect communities, policies, and programs across the state of Florida. The FTP is a collaborative effort of state, regional, and local transportation partners in public and private sectors. We have divided Florida into 5 regions for development of the 2055 Florida Transportation Plan to better understand the needs of our diverse communities and tailor the characteristics and needs of each region. This also helps to provide the framework at a local level so that we have better cohesion in strategies across municipal and jurisdictional boundaries. Up on the screen, you can see there are 3 phases across: visioning, statewide goals and regional objectives, and implementation framework plan development. The FTP will have statewide goals and regional objectives, empowering our communities to develop local strategies around the FTP's framework. You'll see we are just getting towards the tail end of that visioning. Communities are at the center of everything FDOT does, and we will be holding multiple engagement opportunities throughout the FTP update, including statewide webinars and regional workshops throughout the state. And here's the part that a lot of you are going to be interested in. One of the great ways for you to participate in this 2055 FTP is that we are going to be having 5 focus groups that provide a forum for targeted discussions on statewide goals and regional objectives and input to the steering committee that then works directly with FDOT. The focus groups are organized around our 5 major topic areas that align with our FDOT compass: safety, resilient infrastructure, economic development and supply chain, technology, and workforce development. Input on the goals, objectives, and policies that make up the plan is critical to achieve an implementable vision of our future transportation network. I do want to just throw in here, there are going to be a series of approximately 5 or 6 monthly, not monthly, every other month meetings for these focus groups. So let's say you're interested in safety. The first round of those monthly meetings are going to be starting here in July. So they're coming up very quickly, and they do require advanced registration, which you can use the cards at your table for, or I have a QR code at the end you can use as well. The first one for safety is on July 9th at 9 a.m. Economic development and supply chain is on the 10th at 2 p.m. These are all virtual, by the way. I apologize. I did not mention that. Resilient infrastructure is on the 11th at 2 p.m. Technology, which some of you are very interested in, to put your input in, will be on July 18th at 2 p.m. And workforce development will be on the 23rd at 9 a.m. So that first round is coming up here in July, with a second round following in October, and thereafter it'll be every 2 months or so. This slide shows the overall timeline. You can see the planned time periods for the steering committee meetings, as well as the focus groups, public engagement opportunities, and public comment opportunity from September to October 2025, with our final adoption date occurring of the plan occurring in November of 2025. So help us develop the 2055 Florida Transportation Plan. Visit floridaftp.com to learn more about the plan and find out how you can get involved. You are encouraged to join a focus group, participate in a webinar or regional workshop, or simply provide your comments and feedback. I've placed those cards at your seats for your convenience to take with you to help you register yourself or colleagues to participate. Please join us as we build our transportation future together. Thank you so much for your time today, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to hear them.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Beckman? Remember, you can always forward them to Ms. Horn, and she'll pursue an answer.
Yes,
one.
thank you so much. Ms. Pizzo.
Good morning. Very good presentation. Thank you. I had the privilege of working on the 2045 plan back in the day. First question is, where could we find a list of when those focus groups are going to happen in July? Because you went through it rather quickly. So it'd be nice to have a list of where, not where, obviously, since it's going to be virtual, but that list. And also, on the previous plans, you're talking about future, what's happening now, et cetera. Is there any comparison? Is there any look back? It's okay, the 2045 plan, its goals were this and that and whatever. Now you're looking at the 2055. Are you looking back and saying, what was accomplished? What needs to be addressed that didn't happen? So I don't hear that, and I hope previous transportation plans are looked at and evaluated and incorporated into this plan as to what didn't work, what failed, and how to make this even better.
Thank you so much for your question.
you.
First off, I will go ahead and I will email Ms. Horn a list of those July dates. If you go to, it's quite a unique experience to go to the floridaftp.com. It's a virtual room. So you actually kind of move around and click on it, but it allows you to click on it and it has a list there as well, but it'll be much faster. And I will go ahead and email that list to Ms. Horn because we are approaching quickly. As to your second point, I'm happy to look into that to see how they're addressing that and get back to you. It is a statewide thing, so I will have to look into that and get you some information on how they're incorporating those look backs and what failed and what worked and how we're going to fix that. You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm actually going to build on Ms. Pizzo's comments slightly differently. So appreciate you kind of breaking down that statewide, regional, local, whether it's engagement or focus. I guess my question would be, at what point is there an evaluation kind of nationally in terms of what is going on nationally that has worked and hasn't worked that we should or should not include in the program? And I think of things like the Big Dig in Boston. That was a decade of construction, billions of dollars, but it didn't solve everything. And it actually has created more problems in certain areas than it intended to. And kind of understanding before we put a decade-long project in the 2050 plan, what worked other places and why did it work and why didn't it work? And I guess I didn't see any national review that would inform this program.
Yes, thank you for the question. I will absolutely look into that to see how they're incorporating any national into what we're looking at, and I'll be able to hopefully get you an answer very soon. Thank you.
I'll be real short. You've heard me before. We can't even have an idea of what 2030 is going to look like, let alone 2055. I'm just so glad that this is going to take enough time that hopefully everyone has seen so much change that we can just redo everything by the end of this period to something that might actually come into what's going to be. Because transportation as a service is going to be real. And by that time, probably half this room has at least tried it and they realize, no, there's not going to be buses. There's not going to be trains. Everybody gets personally picked up and dropped off wherever you would like to be. And one day, you know, this organization here is going to wake up and say, yep, this is not 10 years or 20 years or 55. This is by 2030. That's it. You've heard me before.
Thank you, Mr. Hanlon. I actually thought of you when I saw these focus groups and I was like, I really hope because some of this group is very adamant about wanting to help participate and form, and this is a great opportunity to do so. So I encourage you to sign up for those focus groups. Thank you.
Ask Ms. Rachel Frederick to call the roll, if it's possible.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll ask all committee members to please leave their microphone off until called. Battler,
Here.
Bobinger, Bosley,
Present.
Campbell,
Present.
Coleman, Council, El Badri,
Present.
Pravola,
Present.
Gonzalez,
Present.
Heath,
Present.
Mott,
Present.
O'Hanlon,
Here.
Pereira, Peters,
Present.
Pigram,
Present.
Pizzo,
Present.
Salas,
Here.
Sabila,
Present.
Webster,
Present.
White, Willenbring.
Here.
Madam Chair, that concludes the roll call. We do have a quorum.
Thank you so much. We will now hear public comments on action items. Do we have people online who want to speak to any of these items?
Madam Chair, we do not have any hands raised on the virtual side.
Thank you so much.
Just go straight.
Thank you. Do we have any people present in the boardroom today who wish to comment on these action items?
I have received no comments.
Thank you so much. We have 3 action items today. First, the approval of the minutes. Do I have somebody that wants to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Teresa Mott, Madam Chair, I approve the minutes as transmitted.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And who seconds?
Jeffrey Campbell, second.
Thank you. Okay, we are looking to approve the minutes of the CAC minutes of May 29, 2024. These are at tab 1 in your agenda packets. Do I have a motion to approve, which I did, which is Mott? Do I have a second? That's Campbell.
Is there any discussion?
Is there any discussion for these items? If not, all in favor, say aye. If there's any opposed? Okay. Hearing none, the motion passes. Next, we're considering a request to recommend approval of the draft Transportation Improvement Program. Information on tablet provided on tab 2. We're going to hear from Mr. Jason Santorio, of the Metro Plan Orlando. Mrs. Santorio, you have the floor.
Thank you. Morning, Chair and committee members. This morning I'll be presenting the fiscal year 2025 to fiscal year 2029 TIP draft for adoption, and you will see some additional information in tab 2 of your agendas. Sure. The purpose of the TIP is to identify all federal and state funded transportation projects for the next 5 years. This includes locally funded and Central Florida expressway projects for informational purposes. And the TIP is updated on an annual basis and is consistent with the adopted prioritized project list, which was adopted in July of 2023. Within the TIP, we have 11 sections in which the projects are categorized. These 11 sections remain unchanged from the presentation I gave you last month. And within the TIP, we have 513 projects within the 11 sections of the TIP. So as you can see, we have a lot of transportation projects going on in the region over the next 5 years. We have a total of 280 federal, state, and turnpike funded projects with approximately $5.4 billion in funding programmed. And this does not include projects provided by Central Florida Expressway Authority, which is investing an additional $4.1 billion into their roadways in our region. This also does not include the $1 billion in locally funded projects submitted by our partner agencies for informational purposes into the TIP. And the pie chart on the screen breaks down this funding based on the sections of the TIP. Based on our region's significant population size, we receive additional federal funds which can be used for all system state highway system projects. Within the TIP, we have a total of 59 Metro Plan Orlando funded projects with approximately $185 million in funding over the next 5 years. And the table on the screen breaks these down by sections between complete streets projects, TISMO projects, bike ped projects, and transit projects. So we've made a few small changes to the draft version of the TIP. At the request of FDOT, we have added the date of our next federal certification to page 14 of the TIP. At the request of City of Orlando, the length of Virginia Drive, Forest Avenue, Corinne Drive Complete Streets project has been updated on page 40 of the TIP. At the request of Osceola County, we have updated the mileage for Old Lake Wilson Road widening project on page 174 of the TIP. At the request of Osceola County, we have also updated the future funding for Jones Road reconstruction project on 175 of the TIP. And at the request of Osceola County, we have updated the historic funds for Lake Toho Water Restoration Pond Trail on page 180 of the TIP. We have also improved some of the line work on the TIP online viewer for better visualization. On June 18th, we hosted our TIP virtual public meeting on Zoom from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. This year, we changed a few things up, and we had Keith Slater from FDOT Corridors Program present on I-4 and moving Florida forward. We also had Amy Beckman with FDOT present on the state highway projects, and Miles O'Keefe with Links present the transit projects. The public meeting was followed by a very engaging Q&A session with topics including transit needs in the region, safe routes to school, use of roundabouts, and project-specific questions. We have also received several comments from both the public as well as from our partner agencies regarding the TIP online viewer, all positive comments. For those who missed it, the video is available on our Metroplan Orlando YouTube channel, and we would like to thank our guests, presenters, as well as our partners for being panelists during the public meeting. And just one last note, the TIP is still open for public comments for the next 10 days. I believe the last day for public comments is July 8th. As I mentioned earlier, you have some additional information in tab 2 of your agendas. With that being said, unless there are any questions, we are asking for your vote of approval. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to recommend approval of the TIP?
David Tabila motions.
Do I have a second?
Second, Jeff Bobinger.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Have to have a roll call now. Rachel.
I would like to do a roll call, Ms. Rachel.
Thank you. Battler,
Yes.
Bobinger, Bosley,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Council,
Yes.
El Badri,
Yes.
Frivola,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Heath,
Yes.
Mott,
Aye.
O'Hanlon, Peters, Pigram, Pizzo,
No.
Salas, Sabila,
Yes.
Webster,
Yes.
Willenbring.
Yes.
We had 16 in the room, 15 for, 1 against.
Thank you so much. With that, it passes, right? With that, it passes. Hearing.
We can,
Yeah, with that, it passes. Thank you so much. Next, we'll ask to recommend the approval.
Sorry, Chair Council, is it possible to have some discussion on that last item? I know. it passed, but-
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm sorry. There was supposed to be discussion afterwards. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Ms. Pizzo?
I just want to say it was an excellent presentation. Thank you. And as I've stated before in previous, there's a lot of money going to, for instance, I-4, there was a big chunk of change going there with a tiny amount going into planning. So how are we planning when we're not giving them money, the funding to plan for moving forward? I also just want to make a comment. TSMO, many of us know what TSMO is, but we have some new folks on the board that may not know what that acronym means. So you might in the future, for any presentations for anybody in the room with acronyms, let folks know what they mean, what they are. And
Thank you for that. And just to let you know, the planning section, those are our reserve SU funds.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there any more discussion? Okay. Next, we're asked to recommend approval of the draft prioritized project list. Supplemental information is provided in tab 3. Mr. Slade Downs of the Metro Plan Orlando will provide the details. Mr. Downs, you have our attention.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Good morning again to all of our members. Like you said, I'll be walking you through the update to our prioritized project list. The PDF of this document is loaded into the screens in front of you for reference if you'd like to take a look at the final version. At our last meeting, I gave you a preview of the annual update to the PPL, and this time just bringing back that same document with changes and updates based on feedback. So I won't spend too much time on background. I don't want to repeat a lot of what I said a month ago, but the long and the short of it is the prioritized project list serves as kind of a bridge between two of our other core documents. Metropolitan Transportation Plan. We pull projects from that into the PPL, and that kind of serves as an on-deck circle for projects that are looking for funding that will then go into the TIP, which Jason just got done telling you about. Once that funding is allocated, it will move into the TIP. So at our last committee meeting cycle, we requested feedback from all of our advisory bodies. Based on that feedback, we were able to incorporate changes in project phasing on the complete streets list to match the needs of a few of our municipal partners. We also made some administrative adjustments to the off-system construction assistance list, as well as the transit projects list, to more accurately show project limits and maintaining agency. Because need is prioritized in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, we didn't make any changes to rankings within those lists. And I know that was very, very quick, but that is kind of the long and short of the updates that we had based on feedback from the last round we got. So today I'm requesting that you please recommend approval to the board for the 2030, 2040 prioritized project list as presented. I'd be happy to take any questions, and also for any of our new or ongoing members, let me know if I got into the alphabet soup a bit with the acronyms. Ms. Pizzo made a good point. We deal with a lot of letters here, so thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions for Mr. Downs? Mr. Sylvia?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for presenting this for us today, and we look forward to putting a vote to this. One of the questions I had, I wasn't able to pull up the PDF, is plans for more education and communication for the general public. We keep talking about this. I feel like the focus continues to be on infrastructure, and infrastructure is great. Infrastructure costs a lot of money, and education is sort of not, seems to be a priority. Just as an example, real quick, and I'll make this really quick. I live in the Horizon West area, and in a neighboring community, Independence, they've had to put in a number of speed humps for traffic calming purposes, where the speed humps are parallel to off-street parking. There is a gap, car width gap between the speed hump and the curb. Well, all these speed humps have done is allow people to speed up even faster to swing around the speed hump, causing, sort of having the opposite effect, because it's just human behavior, right? It's just human nature to try to just speed up and get around obstacles. So now they're spending even more money to build a curb to close in that gap. It just seems like money after money is being spent on infrastructure where effective communication and education on safety, on watching out for children. These are neighborhoods where children are playing, running into the streets, chasing after balls, people walking their dogs, riding bikes all the time. Could be spent as part of these plans that we're voting on. So I'm not sure how much of that is included moving forward, but I would like for that to be on record that I feel like more education needs to be a priority for the money that's being spent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Farivola?
Yes, to follow up on what he's saying, first of all, great presentation. Very impressed with the fact that there is an actual abbreviation and acronym within the packet. I think that is, every packet should include that. Following up on the safety issue, I do come from prior law enforcement. I was a state trooper on the highways on 995 in Miami during a lot of change in the early 90s. So I am coming with that background. And I am coming with a community service background where I did a lot of community service and intervention. And I think safety is the most important thing. We suggest that people follow the rules, and we put signs up and we say that we have to turn here, we can't turn there, or, we tell people what to do, folks to do out on the day-to-day basis as far as transportation, but I don't see it on the flip end when they're planning it. I see it at the very end. And I think that there needs to be a little bit more transparency when it comes to planning it. And I think there should be other folks that see the day-to-day following of signs and whatnot. That has to be at the planning state, not at the end when there's an accident or fatality. And so I'm looking at, just as my first time here and bringing all that experience here and noticing that I'm not seeing that. I agree with him in that situation. Safety is the biggest and most important thing, because without safety, you don't have, basically, it's not a complete circle. And I think that really should be the focus. We know that you folks can plan infrastructure. We know things can be built right, but without actually going out and actively teaching the public that they have to drive within a lane, that they can't go around humps, that has to be incorporated. We went into a life of technology. We incorporated people. This is how you use your phone. You can't live without a phone these days. And transportation is very much parallel to that. So I think safety is huge and it needs to be incorporated in these plans.
Thank you so much. Mr. O'Hanlon?
If, really quick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just
You have
to bridge off of the PPL for a second. I absolutely agree. It's definitely needing a attack from all angles as far as safety goes. I definitely, you'll hear more about Vision Zero and our Vision Zero efforts moving forward. And some of that messaging definitely includes like, it's more than just enforcement and infrastructure. It's education and outreach. And we agree is what I'm trying to say.
I'm gonna say something back. Giving over, I would say probably over 100 death notifications. I take safety as probably my top priority. And I believe that I agree with you in Vision Zero. No one should die.
Agreed.
And without safety and educating the public, they go hand in hand. And so there's nothing worse in the world than to tell somebody that their loved one has died because someone didn't follow the law or didn't follow a rule or something was not done properly in an infrastructure. So I've been in those situations, so I can tell you how serious I am about safety.
For sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Mr. O'Hanlon?
Well, Jeanette actually jumped in front of me. You're right. Transportation is going to be on your phone. You're all probably aware, or maybe not. Autonomous, driverless transportation went live for the general public in San Francisco earlier this week. So it's not going to happen. It has already happened. And we are nowhere here in Central Florida ready for that. Not eventuality, yeah, eventuality, it's just coming really fast. And you've heard me before, I am never going to vote for a diesel polluting thing or trains or buses or any of this crap anymore because very soon they're all out of business. There's a group right now trying to put together a program to do transportation in Seminole County, undercutting links and getting rid of links because they're a dinosaur. And I've had it and you've heard it before. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Hanlon.
One more question. How engaged are the local law enforcement agencies when planning is going on?
So I know that with our Vision Zero efforts, I know that we have law enforcement partners on the steering committees and the working groups. They're definitely involved from the early stages because
on local and state level, because you have to you definitely have to hire the highway patrol
sure.
and whatever branches of DOT. They were DOT back in the day, but they're all within the same branch now. And so the local agencies, there is not some sort of steering committee with local law enforcement officials that do that currently.
So what's coming to mind is our community traffic safety team. That's in each of the 3 counties, they each have their own CTST. It's a group of planning administrative officials, as well as law enforcement officials from the local PDs and the sheriff. Not sure if does that include state? Okay, thank you.
So those CTSTs, those are monthly meetings that are occurring in each of our 3 counties between local planning agency staff at each of our 3 counties, likely with the cities as well. And that includes all of the law enforcement partners as well. So we're having open communication early, often, to be able to address things before problems occur, but also to address any situations that have already manifested.
Perfect, thank you. Yes, it did, thank you.
Is there any more questions that I might have missed? Anybody's? Oh, yes, Ms. Misty, thank you so much.
Please excuse me, I'm a little nervous. This is my first meeting today. Thank you for your presentation. I represent a community that has been in construction, under construction for the last 3 years. in the south of downtown Orlando area. When I look at many of these future projects, they fall into many small business communities that happen to have state highways running through them. Edgewater Drive, I see some of the Roslyn projects. Certainly South Orange is affected by that. I'm here to implore you as you craft budgets. We're talking about safety and communication to the public. I'm also asking for better provisions for supporting small businesses through these projects, as it has significant economic impact on our area. We know that for the future, these projects will be better. Often our small businesses ask for whom, because they're looking to make rent, pay their employees, and we're not doing enough to support them through the time, whether it's wayfinding, support for rent, diminished income, and provisions for supporting that, working with state and local partners. We need to do a better job by them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. With no more questions, oh, Ms. Jenna, do you still have a question? Okay, thank you. Okay, do I have a motion to recommend approval of the draft prioritized project list?
Motion to approve Jennifer Campbell.
Do I have a second?
Second, Albadri.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Can I have a roll call, Ms. Frederick?
Butler,
Yes.
Bobinger,
Yes.
Bosley,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Council,
Yes.
Albadri, Pravola,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Heath,
Yes.
Mott,
Aye.
O'Hanlon,
No.
Peters,
Yes.
Pigram, Pizzo,
Yes.
Salas,
Yes.
Sabila,
Yes.
Webster,
Yes.
Willenbring,
Yes.
we have, apologies, let me do a recount. 16 in favour, 1 against. The motion carries.
Thank you, Rachel. I also think we've added a member, Mr. Lopez has come in since then, and so we should include him in the roll call for
Thank
the
you.
record, please.
Mr. Lopez. Thank you. So that changes 17 for, 1 against.
Thank you so much. That means it passes. Thank you. We have 2 presentations today. I'd like to ask all members and presenters to be mindful of the time. Members, if you have any questions for the presenters, please stand and your name on a, what? Please stand.
The name card.
Oh, okay. Please stand your name card on the end. We will call all of those who have questions at the end of each presentation, trying to make sure that we hear from as many members as possible. If we have to move along because of the time, please forward all additional questions to Ms. Horn. 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan, MTP update, tab 4.
Right, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Taylor Laurent, and I'll be giving you the update on our MTP and how it's moving forward. Starting off with a quick overview of the entirety of the schedule. So you've been hearing a lot of monthly updates on this at each of your meetings. For our new members, you will see me up here every other meeting moving forward, getting an update on this. We're about a quarter of the way into the development of our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, with several ongoing efforts. It's kind of implied by where that gold bar is right now. We do have a few items that are going to be wrapping up in the next several weeks, and other items continuing to move forward, and I'll provide more detailed status updates in a moment on those. But ultimately, we are on track to be able to adopt the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan in December of 2025. So for those additional specifics, Starting off, our public participation plan that you heard more about from Marianne at your last meeting is complete, and that will be published on our website by the end of this week. Thank you to everyone who filled out those yellow forms that Marianne provided at prior meetings. That's helping us build out our contact list to be able to share and disseminate information about the planning process to everyone in the region. So thank you. If you do have any other ideas, please send them to Marianne. In terms of our technical work, our existing conditions and area profile technical report, so kind of where our state of the transportation system stands now, is available on our website. That one is complete. When it comes to our goals and objectives, we've spent a lot of time at prior meetings crafting and refining those goal and objective statements. Those have been completed. You'll be seeing a final language today as we talk about our draft indicators or the measures that we'll be using to evaluate our progress towards achieving those goals and objectives. So more to come on that without stealing my own thunder. Moving into our drivers of change, this is something we've also talked about at prior meetings. And a link to the completed Chapter 8 Drivers of Change report was included in your agenda packets for you to peruse at your leisure. This report explores in depth the trends which could influence how we plan transportation projects through 2050. For a quick summary again for our new members, this includes looking at trends in 2 general categories. The first being those unique to our Central Florida region and how our area is changing in terms of topics such as demographics, the economy, and development. And then the second set of factors of change are those external factors, often global or more significant changes that are out of our control that we still need to account for as we plan transportation projects for the next 25 years. So this report does describe a variety of trends and projections for the region's transportation future, and we'll be using that information to inform our policy and investment decision-making as we move forward with the development of this MTP. So some of our other technical work ongoing, we have continued our coordination with the Department of Transportation's Regional Planning Central Florida Regional Planning Model, CFRPM. And we recently provided comments on their socioeconomic data, so some of the background information about the people living in our region, where houses are, development, employment, that type of information, to help refine that and make it ready for those future 2050 projections developed for that regional model. In terms of our transit vision plan, that element itself is wrapping up. So you will see a link to be able to review the results of that work and the final report in your agenda for your August-September meeting cycle. Our freight planning assessment is just getting started. So we recently had a technical workshop providing an overview of the approach that we're going to be using for that element. And we also have a few industry and public agency workshops being planned for July. And there'll be a little more information about that available if you have any questions. In terms of our—
I'm sorry, could you speak a little louder? I missed the last part that you just—
That there are going to be industry and public agency workshops in July, and more information can be available if you have questions. So in terms of our needs assessments, this is one that I think we've talked about in prior meetings, but I'm excited about it, so I'm going to say it again. Our TSMO, Transportation Systems Management and Operations projects, as well as our active transportation needs assessments have been completed, and we're going to be taking the results of those 2 elements and wrapping them directly into the MTP. There are several modal needs assessments ongoing at this time. Don't have enough time to go through every single one. But safety and our Vision Zero action plans, that is one of those particular elements that's ongoing, and you will receive more information about those through other presentations or from me in future meetings. We also have health, housing, and other environmental evaluations ongoing at this time as well. In terms of our state highway system needs assessment, this is the item that's most nearest to a significant milestone, so we're going to spend a little bit more time on that this meeting. The state highway system itself is one of the overarching elements of our region's transportation infrastructure. We're starting off with a holistic review of the state highway system. Our next step will be going to the off-system facilities, so our other roads that we generally use on a day-to-day basis, just without that state highway designation. So that will be coming soon. But in terms of the state highway system, we kind of started our needs assessment with looking at the 2045 long-range plans needs and did a review to make sure that those were still relevant as of the conditions of today and what we're expecting to be needed by 2050. From there, we also developed some preliminary traffic forecasts for the year 2050, so we can see if there are any new projects that need to be considered as we move forward. So with those two pieces of information, we will be kind of refining that state highway systems needs list and taking the first draft to our local jurisdictions and the Department of Transportation to be able to refine that together and bring back a second draft for you all to review at a later time. And then I know we're talking about needs assessments. Needs assessments always brings up the question about funding. How do we move these forward? We are well underway with our financial resources and revenue forecasting element of the long range plan. And that, just a bit of a reminder, the MTP or the long range plan, I use those interchangeably, is required to be fiscally constrained and cost feasible. So this task really involves the assessment of financial resources that may be available to fund transportation between now and 2050. I want to make sure that we're designing projects that fit within the budget that we're expecting to have over the next 25 years. And that includes looking at federal, state, local, private, or any discretionary funding that may be available to apply to transportation projects. So more information about this as we get more from the assessment phase of what funding is available to what projects could be funded with that available revenue will be coming in the next 6 to 8 months. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I'll say it again. We had a technical workshop just a few weeks ago on June 13th. We were able to have more detailed and in-depth discussions about the transit vision elements, preliminary results, as well as the overview of that freight planning approach. So if you do have questions, I'd recommend starting with that video. It is available up on our YouTube page, and I've got a link here just in case for easy reference. But the refinement of indicators that you see here as my workshop recap, under the workshop recap, we're actually going to have that discussion here today to really talk about what those indicators look like right now, which you have a printed copy of that at your seat available to look at today. And it's also included in your agenda packets under tab 4. Yep, that one. Mine's in black and white, but yes, we've got that one available here too. So for a little bit of perspective before we dive into what each of these indicators are and how they'll be used, I want to make sure we're using the same terminology in our discussion today. So when we look at our goals and objectives and now indicators, when we're talking about a goal, that's a broad statement used to describe our desired end state. So where we are 25 years in the future for our 2050 plan. The objectives are specific, measurable statements that support the achievement of each of these goals. And then the indicators are the data that we're intending to use to measure our progress towards achieving those goals and objectives. And then that next step, strategies, it's usually how do we do this? That comes after we've set our goals, objectives, and indicators, and we start working towards what are the solutions to be able to implement to achieve all these desired outcomes. So today we're going to be focusing on the indicator step. And as a bit of a recap again for our new members, there are 5 core goal areas: safety, reliability, connectivity, community, and prosperity, that have been refined with the feedback provided by each of our advisory committees, as well as our technical partners throughout the region. And the final language is what I'll have up on the slides for you to look at today. There were several questions that we received through the development of these goals and objectives about how we implement these. That's where our indicators are coming in, bringing in some of that reality step. What are the actions we can take? Not quite into strategies yet, but getting a little bit closer. Now, again, as we've also spoken before, and what you'll kind of see in the handout is that each of our goal areas are interconnected. And as we change or make project improvements in one area, you generally see a broad landscape of improvements or changes throughout the entire region. So as we kind of work together to develop that shared vision of transportation for our future, we're going to be seeing that interconnectedness and that next layer of the web really shining through as we talk about indicators. Okay, so for each of these indicators, I want to make sure we're again on the same page with what these are. These are measurable and indicative of the transportation system that we're trying to build towards. So these have been curated, again, to be measurable and specific, with the basis for using them either as prioritization criteria, annual monitoring and reporting purposes, or being able to use those as part of our Tracking the Trends program or signposts to see how we're preparing for these future trends that have also been discussed under our Drivers of Change report. So there's a myriad of ways that these will be incorporated into the plan. And as we talk about good indicators, we want to make sure they're very specific, so we all know what we're talking about, that they're measurable, so we can track progress, and that these items that we talk about are updated regularly. So that way we can make sure that we're not just reporting it once every 5 years. It's something we can hear about every year, every 2 years, depending on the availability of that information. We want to make sure it's understandable for everyone of kind of what we're doing and what we're building towards. So that feels like a lot of preamble and build up, so let's just get right into it. I'm going to kind of highlight the goals and objectives up on the slides for you today, but what I'm really speaking about are highlighting the indicators that are on your handout. So if you want to take a look at those, this is kind of where I'll be highlighting some of those key elements. So in terms of safety, our goal statement is to provide a safe and secure transportation system for all of our users. This goal area has 5 indicators that really focus on the numbers and rates of fatalities, serious injuries, and crashes that occur within our region, as well as looking at that from multiple perspectives. Are these bicycle and pedestrian crashes that we're seeing, automobile, transit related? What are the items that are occurring so we can identify any trends and be able to appropriately plan for those. You'll also see some average clearance times for when incidents may occur, and then the average emergency response and notification times, again, by incident occurrence. So you'll see several of those listed there. In terms of reliability, this is to provide a reliable transportation system across all modes for people and freight. There are 7 indicators proposed for the reliability category, and these are kind of a wider range, really looking at metrics that focus on the infrastructure condition to make sure that what we're operating on is in good condition. Looking at level of travel time reliability. So can you reliably get from one place to another in the time that you expect? And looking at that from multiple perspectives. Are you driving? Is it reliable? If you're taking transit, is that reliable? If you're walking or biking, is that reliable? So looking at it from those multiple perspectives, and that's what you'll see in your handout. And also looking at the conditions of our transit system itself as well. In terms of connectivity, our goal statement is to enhance lives through improved access to jobs and services for people of all ages and abilities. This item has 6 indicators that, again, cover a range from transit operations to the percent of jobs as well as essential services that can be accessible via different modes of transportation and travel. But then also looking at average person trip distance. So how far are you going for each of your potential trips and what mode best serves the trips that we're seeing that are occurring throughout the region. There are more, I'm just showing some highlights there. And in terms of community, we're looking to enhance the health and vitality of our region's communities and environments. There are 7 proposed indicators under this goal area, talking about miles of active transportation infrastructure that has been constructed and available for use for the public. Looking at rates of asthma, obesity, and diabetes, knowing that we want to be able to help improve the health of our region and the people living here. Also looking at emissions, keeping track of those. And we did receive a question before the meeting about one of these indicators here under community, so I will answer that here in the public forum. The specific indicator is miles of publicly owned, maintained transportation infrastructure within wetlands or 100-year floodplain. So that's really looking at what infrastructure has been publicly built that is encroaching upon those areas. So we want to make sure that we're protecting the environment and preserving the environment as we continue to build for our future. So that's a little bit of clarification on the wording of that one. And then our 5th goal area is prosperity, strengthening our region's economy. There are 7 indicators proposed under this section as well. with the range kind of covering freight values by mode that travel within our region. Again, access to jobs, but looking at it under a few different lenses than what we've talked about in prior areas. Looking at affordable housing available per capita, as well as the percentage of transportation and housing costs as a percentage of household income. So that's a highlight of the indicators that are in your handout. There are more, so if we do have questions, I've reserved time for us to be able to discuss today. But just in case we don't have enough time to get to everybody's questions, definitely email Marianne, myself, or respond to our MTP indicators survey. This was included in your agenda packets, and I think Marianne highlighted that when she sent it out. There are 3 people who have already responded, so thank you. You've got the jump and are in the lead on all the responses that we've received to date. So with that, does anyone have any questions about the myriad of information we've gone through today?
Amazing presentation, Taylor. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions from Ms. Lawrence? Ms. Jeanette?
Great presentation. I thought it was very informative. I do have one question, and I know you brought up the whole situation with the wetlands and doing that type of, is there any specific, because Mother Nature is unpredictable. And we know within the last several years, and we can see what's happening in South Florida right now with the water situation. It's basically Miami-Dade County was shut down for days. As a result, that could happen here. We're surrounded by lakes. We're surrounded by water. It's obvious. Is weather an indicator? We've had many several hurricanes that have left our neighboring counties underwater. We've been fortunate, at least in Orange County, that we haven't sat underwater for quite some time, but our neighboring counties have. So is there weather related trends and things that are in this plan?
Yes, so there are multiple perspectives that we're including when it comes to environmental effects, and kind of going back to Hurricane Ian that we all experienced here in Central Florida. That was kind of a wake-up call to the amount of water that could be received in our area at any given time. Luckily, that did.
Because as we build, water stops and
Still needs
recedes,
some
and so
place to
we,
go.
yeah.
Yes. So it's not directly here in the indicators, but there is a large discussion about the changes that we're seeing in terms of climate and weather related events in the Drivers of Change report that is available online. We're also doing a resilience improvement process that's being developed as part of this MTP to see what other elements we should be including in our transportation projects to better prepare for the changing environment. But we're also doing an environmental stewardship chapter, which is again still under development, to see not only how is Mother Nature impacting us, but how are we impacting the environment, and how do we need to better plan our transportation projects to mitigate any negative impacts from that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Willenbury?
Thank you very much for the information. I think I heard you say something about asthma was an indicator as well. You said rates of asthma?
Yes.
Okay, how is asthma defined and how is that information collected? I guess what I mean is like, is COPD asthma or is only asthma? So just stupid question. I apologize, but.
No, it's good to be clear about what data we're using and where it came from. So I believe that is Department of Health information, but I can verify the exact definitions of what those are as well. So
I'd be curious on how that, how that's collected also. So thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Sabila?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, great presentation. Question about the plans and as you're moving forward, our objectives and goals, is there any adaptability as you plan ahead, as needs change, as weather changes, technology changes, to reprioritize a goal or objective because of, something that may not have been foreseen, is now starting to, to become an issue. And in that adaptability plan, if there is one or opportunity, to work with local municipalities to help them reprioritize. Just quick, I take Fouquet and Reams Road as my daily commute, and this is probably the sloppiest intersection that's ever been created in human history. We recently had a death of a 14-year-old girl as a tree crashed onto her family's vehicle. There's just a lot of need that I feel like, yes, we know the improvements are coming, but you know, it's like, can we reprioritize and move some things around? So just wondering if adaptability is a part of these plans.
So the long range plan that we're talking about today is part of that update process. So this is a long range document that plans over 25 years that is updated every 5 years. So at a minimum, that's what's occurring. But in practice, we know that things change on a daily basis. So as we look at moving projects forward from the long range plan to the prioritized project list that Slade presented about today, and also as they become funded in our transportation improvement program, we're communicating with our local agencies, with the public through every step of that process to make sure that as needs change, the project can evolve and change to address the needs as they stand at that time. So there's a lot of engagement that occurs to make sure that it's the right project that gets constructed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Piggle.
Good morning. Do you do the graphics or does the Metro Plan team do the graphics? Because it's just phenomenal every time to be able to communicate this really complex stuff to people of various ages, various backgrounds. So kudos to the whole team from taking all of this and making it digestible in a visual way. And the infographics are always phenomenal. I'm going to apologize that I had to unfortunately step out for a phone call. So I missed the member comments on the last two action items with the tip and the prioritized project list. So if I'm stepping on anything that was already said, my apologies. I guess as part of going out and doing 2050, you're going to be doing public engagement, getting public feedback, and you know what do the constituents of this region essentially see as the vision for 2050 and provide that feedback. I guess my question would be, when we have that and we compare it to a chart we saw earlier in the meeting, are we going to see the constituents that elect the board members of Metro Plan want 80% going towards transit and biking and 20% towards road widening, but our tip is 80% road widening and 20% transit, and conceptually, Tom. And so I guess if the plan isn't working towards what the constituents want that vote for our Metro Plan leaders, I guess I would be put in a weird position that I can't vote for something if it's not going towards what the region is saying they want. So how do we balance the 2050 vision, goals, and dreams with where we're at, and how do we incrementally move that way?
So that's an excellent question, and kind of one that we're hoping to address through the development of the MTP and the process that we're using this time around. So right now, we're really focusing on goals and objectives. What is our shared collaborative vision for 25 years from now? And the needs assessments, what are the problems that we see today that need to be addressed, and identifying those projects to best, as of our knowledge today, serve those needs that we see coming up over the next 25 years. Once those are completed and projects are prioritized, again, using public feedback at that point, we're going to have a separate discussion about how funding is allocated throughout the region. So that will be something we talk about in the technical workshops, but also here in this advisory committee forum to talk about what are those different funding scenarios for Metro Plan Orlando, TMA, federal funds. And that's where we have the power to be able to look at what are our funding policies and decide where those dollars will be best utilized throughout the region. So that is a discussion that's coming. We're trying to get through the needs assessment and kind of have the budgeted list first, know what our constraints are fiscally, so we can then understand the implications of each of the potential scenarios that we're going to discuss. So that'll be coming ideally in early 2025 for you to look at.
Thank you, Mr. Pigram. Ms. Pizzo.
Thank you. Very good presentation, as always. On the draft indicators that we were handed out, I had just a couple quick questions. You have safety and reliability. And I'm looking on the chart here, we're talking about percentage of bridges that are good or poor condition. Well, we all know what happens when a bridge fails. That I believe is a safety issue. So that's where I'm trying to wrap my mind around what's the difference between safety and reliability. And that would be the same with the transit building and structures that are marginal or poor. So what is that difference between safety and reliability? Thank you.
Thank
So
you, Ms. Pizzo.
that implies kind of goes back to our interconnectedness with our goal areas. We're trying to select indicators that will best measure what we're trying to build for our future. So if there are elements that do cross over and serve multiple goal areas, so I can go through and make sure that that's indicated for the infrastructure condition elements, that we've also checked that reliability box because we want to reliably make it across those facilities as well. I think that'll address your comment. Thank you. Mhm.
Thank you so much. Mr. O'Hanlon.
Great introduction. So to doing what the people who elect our county commissioners want. We're basically at a point of inflection in society. Steve Jobs created these phones. He didn't do a marketing plan. He said, people don't understand how they want these things. And they're willing to pay $1 gazillion for these things. Well, that's exactly what's happening today. What we did for the last 10 years is absolutely not what's going to happen for the next 10 years. Autonomous vehicles are already driving around out in California. We need to prepare for them here. One of the main goals here is prosperity. Well, autonomous vehicles are going to be unbelievable prosperity because the cost of transportation falls through the floor. We all pay $30 to $50 for everybody that gets on a bus or a train here in Central Florida. I cannot believe that we pay $90 a day to subsidize my son's trip from Altamont to the SunTrust building every day. Well, autonomous vehicles cost about 25 cents a mile. Uber's $2 a mile. Autonomous vehicles are like 25 cents a mile. And then you do autonomous, say 10 passenger buses. The cost is 2.5 cents a mile. You cannot fathom the prosperity that that's going to bring to the first group of people, first city that has that driving around. Because all of this money is being spent on transportation out of people's budgets. And I especially look at the low socioeconomic part of our society. Their transportation costs are going to fall through the floor. And then we talk about safety. We should want as many autonomous vehicles as you can possibly get out there, because that's how you get to 0 fatalities. These autonomous vehicles don't run people over. So no, I'm not going to support any of this. I've told you multiple times, and there's just too many reasons I'm not going to support it, because this is not going to happen. I appreciate all your efforts, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Hanlon. Mr. Gonzalez Galliano.
Great presentation. Love the visuals for somebody that appreciates strategy. I'm fascinated by the work that you and your team has done. My curiosity goes around, how does the community know about all this work? And we've have new members coming into our community on a weekly basis. I think the last number I heard was 400. I don't even know what that is. So how about we engage in these newcomers into our 2050 plan? So what are the when it comes to public participation plan, what are the indicators? I know we're doing technical workshops, so do we get happy when 100 people attend, or is it 1,000 people, or we are over 1 million in our community? So what is our happy moment, if you will? And I know I'm asking multiple questions. My main curiosity is, how do we for sure understand that we're building a plan that includes everyone in our community, even those new members of our community that don't even know that a plan is being made as we speak.
Mhm. So I'll try and address all the pieces. If I miss one, please call me on it. So in terms of our public engagement strategies, we work hard to make sure that our message is getting out to a broad group of people at any given time throughout our region. English, several of our documents are translated into Spanish, and we have other language services available free of charge if they're requested. Marianne, I think I got that language correct. So in terms of each of our projects, our strategies change up a little bit if we're just talking about general transportation processes, or if we're talking about specific targeted projects about one particular corridor. So the strategies do vary, but in terms of our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, we have a broad group that is already signed up to receive information from us about our long-range planning efforts. And we've been working with you all, each of our other advisory committees to help us build upon that communications list to help spread the word. And that's part of your membership of this community, to be transportation advocates in your area, to help share this information, get it out there, and help us get the feedback that we need to develop that shared regional vision for transportation for 2050. But if we want to talk specifics about the plan, I think let's follow up after the meeting. We want to save some time for our next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez Galeano. Mr. Peters. Do you have a
Thank you.
question?
Movement of freight is so important as it affects prosperity. But that seems like a full-time job in terms of getting that data. Oh, how are you planning on getting?
We have a very skilled team helping us with that. I believe a couple of their members are listening in right now. So that's a bit of a more detailed discussion.
Okay.
So I'd say
Well, we
let's
can
follow
talk
up
about
after
it
the
separately.
meeting. Yeah. Mhm.
If that'll conclude all the questions, Miss, do you have one more? Ms. Farrell?
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. I just have two quick questions. I've heard a lot. I agree with some of the things that these folks are saying. But Mr. Gonzalez Galeano has made a valid point. We're talking about our local people that live day to day here, but we are a tourist attraction town. And I don't hear anything about our tourists. How are these tourists being informed, and is it within this plan? And then the other thing was, who and what makes that decision to adjust within this long period as to whether this was a priority 25 years from now, this will be a priority, but all of a sudden it became a priority. Who makes that ultimate decision?
Well, in terms of visitors and incorporating their travel needs in the plan, that is one of the elements that we have incorporated. Just didn't have time to get into that today. So that is there, and we can talk more about that if you have more questions. In terms of the prioritization, that is generally set within our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. We don't generally see item number 40 on the list jumping up to item number 1. That is not a process that we approve of, or maybe not approve. That's not something that we really look to be changing up on a regular basis. That has not happened over the past 5 years, and we're not expecting that to continue. As projects move forward through the federal funding process, if the particular item that's up for discussion, saying there's funding available for this project in this year, let's make sure that the scope is correct to address the problems that this project needs to accomplish. That's where changes can occur. But if a local agency or some other funding source is available that a local agency can use to move that project up, to advance it earlier than what could be done through the federal process, then that's always an option that's on the table.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We truly appreciate your work. We have a presentation from Ms. Lara Bulk of the Metro Plan Orlando on the congestion management process, which is currently underway. Laura? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyways, again, my name's Laura Bauk. I'm staff here at Metro Plan Orlando. Excited to be here today to give an overview on the ongoing update to our congestion management process that we've been working on the last couple of months. I want to start things off with a little table setting, defining what we mean by when we say congestion management. Sort of simply put, congestion management is about the application of strategies to optimize the performance and reliability of our transportation system. Of course, some nuance to that. When we think about congestion itself, there are sort of two major buckets of congestion that we think about. The first is recurring congestion. That's going to be the congestion that you sort of expect to see around the same times and at the same areas on the system every day or maybe every weekday. Generally, recurring congestion occurs due to high traffic volumes on roadways that are at or near capacity. The other type of congestion that we consider is non-recurring congestion. That's going to be unexpected or sort of atypical congestion. Some of the things that can cause non-recurring congestion are things like traffic crashes or major special events, like if there's something at the Amway arenas, for instance. So then we can move on to thinking about what do we mean when we talk about a congestion management process? So that's really a systematic approach to managing congestion that both provides accurate and up-to-date information, and then also identifies strategies that are going to help us to optimize that system performance and to ensure that we're providing those reliable travel times. A congestion management process is one that is objectives driven and performance based. And really the intent there is to make sure that we're making decisions about how we invest as it relates to congestion in a way that's going to help us meet the outcomes that we want to see. Generally, a lot of the strategies that we end up identifying as a part of the congestion management process or the CMP end up being those TSMO or transportation system management and operations strategies, things that are going to be sort of technology based or operations based strategies. A little history behind congestion management guidance. The first legislation that contemplated congestion management was back in 1991, the Intermodal Surface Transportation Efficiency Act first required that MPOs put together a congestion management system. That guidance carried through to the next transportation legislation, RT21. But then in 2005, the safety legislation sort of rethought that and got rid of the congestion management system or the CMS in lieu of thinking through a congestion management process, which the major difference there being that the congestion management system was looked at as more of a snapshot in time of how the system was doing, whereas a CMP or the process is an ongoing sort of open-ended living document that is updated in a way that provides for an MPO or community to really think about what are the goals and objectives that they have for congestion and for their transportation system broadly, to think about new things that are of concern that we want to address. And then also as we think about those performance measures that we track through the CMP, if we're not meeting our targets, it allows for us to continue to update those strategies that we're pursuing. So any MPO that has more than 200,000 people is required to develop a CMP. However, federal guidance is not prescriptive about either what the approach looks like for congestion management process or how often that you have to update it. Here at Metro Plan, we update our CMP every 5 years on the same schedule that we do our MTP long range planning update. And we do that for two reasons. First, so that the goals and objectives that are identified for our long range planning efforts can inform what we're doing with the CMP. And then conversely, so that the strategies that are coming out of the CMP can inform what goes into our MTP. I will note that there is no requirement that the strategies that are recommended through the congestion management process are included in the MTP. As I noted, some of those are going to be those sort of operational short-term strategies that they may get put into place outside of the long-range planning process, but it does provide for us to consider those actions as we're identifying which projects are going to make it into that cost feasible plan. I noted that there is no prescribed way of doing a congestion management process. However, FHWA did provide guidance in 2015 on what that process could look like, and we generally follow that here. So the first thing that we do is we define what our goals and objectives are going to be specifically for congestion management. We then identify what that study area is going to look like. Here at Metro Plan Orlando, it's our 3-county planning area as the study area for the CMP. We then identify what our performance measures are going to be. What are we tracking year over year or evaluation period over evaluation period to make sure that we're moving the needle in the right direction. What targets are we setting? And then from there, we roll into identifying and implementing those strategies that we think are going to move the needle. And then we identify some sort of evaluation and monitoring process. So that sort of sets the table for what a CMP is all about, why we're doing it. The remainder of the presentation is going to talk about, first of all, a snapshot of what was included in our 2045 congestion management process update. And then I'm going to talk through what we're looking at updating as a part of this 2050 CMP update. So for the 2045 CMP, similar to what we're doing this time, actually, what we did with the CMP goals was we followed exactly the 2045 MTP goals. We thought that they were strong. They reflected what we wanted to do as an agency and as a community long-term, and that those goals should really be informing and guiding how we went about developing our CMP goals and those objectives for the CMP. This slide shows sort of a sampling of some of the performance measures that were included in the CMP update in 2045. As you can see, there are a number of performance measures that are associated with each of the 5 goal areas that we identified. And also, we identified performance measures that both measure things that are that may be drivers of congestion, things like how many crashes there are, how quickly we're clearing incidents off our roadways. But then also we were measuring things that are impacted by congestion, things like air quality and delay on the system. For the 2045 CMP update, we identified strategies sort of in 3 broad buckets. The first were strategies that improve safety for all users. The thinking there being that those strategies may be things that would really impact that non-recurring congestion that I talked about earlier. The other 2 buckets of strategies were those that optimize system capacity, and then those that shift trips from single occupant vehicles to other modes of travel, with those other 2 buckets sort of being able to impact maybe recurring and non-recurring congestion as well. So for this 2050 CMP update, we're going to be updating sort of all the things I just talked about, and I'll go through those each in turn. As I noted before, with the 2045 MTP update, the goals of the MTP are what really drove the goals of the CMP, and we're following that same model now. We'll be using those same 5 goal areas to help us define what our performance measures are going to be and what strategies that we're pursuing. In looking at our CMP performance measures for this 2050 update, we have first been over the last couple of months just gathering data on where we have gotten to for each of the performance measures that were part of the 2045 CMP, seeing if we've been moving the needle in the right direction on each of those. And now what we're doing is thinking through, are these really the right measures for us moving forward? Are we getting a holistic view of how the system is performing? And so we're thinking through potentially changing the approach to a couple of the previous performance measures. Some of them are going to potentially be removed because they're duplicative, or maybe we don't think they really capture how we're performing in terms of congestion management on the system. For others, we're looking at maybe some different forms of data or new data sources that are either easier for us to get to as we're doing our evaluation and reporting, or that we think are more accurate than what we were using before. We're also considering some potential new PMs to make sure that we are really having that holistic view of the transportation system. And then we'll be identifying some targets that I'll come back to. I'll talk more about that in a bit. For our CMP strategies, we've just sort of finished going through and looking at the strategies that were recommended as a part of the 2045 congestion management process update to see which ones were actually implemented over the last 5 years and to start to evaluate whether or not they were effective in helping us meet our goals. So from there, we're going to identify which strategies we think we should carry forward into the next CMP update, which ones maybe should be removed, and if there are any strategies that we need to add. And then another key element of this particular update is that we're putting together a CMP scorecard, something that we can include probably on a quarterly basis in your committee packets and those for the other committees in the board. Just with not all of the performance measures, probably something along the lines of 5 to 8 performance measures that provide that snapshot quarterly of how we're doing in terms of the performance measures that we think are the real indicators of how we're doing in terms of congestion management. So I'll be reporting out on that soon. And in terms of next steps for the CMP, we'll be having an internal workshop here with staff to talk through the project team's recommendations for how we want to change our performance measures, update our targets and our strategies, and to provide that first overview of that CMP scorecard. That's happening in a couple of weeks. And we're going to take our input from staff and bring it to that next MTP technical workshop that's happening on August 8th, where I'll have some time to do a deep dive on the CMP and be reviewing each of what we're identifying or what we're recommending for each of those areas and get input there based on the input from the technical workshop. We'll be rolling that into developing our draft CMP, and I expect to be back here in the fall to present that to you and get your further input. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions you may have. Like everyone tired?
Go back in history,
Okay.
Jeb Bush. We had impact fees for new businesses and new home construction. And one of them were transportation impact fees. Because all of this congestion you're talking about just gets worse and worse with the more stuff that's built. Unless you make the new stuff that's built contribute the money to fix roads so that the congestion doesn't get worse. I haven't heard anybody discuss it in years. It got axed years ago. I would think it would be a phenomenal thing for us to put back on the books again. Whenever you build something new, you got to contribute to the transportation system. So if somebody wants to suggest that, great. I would certainly go for it.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that food for thought.
And just to piggyback on to Mr. O'Hanlon's comment, once upon a time, we did have something called it would allow local governments to tell the big developers, okay, you're impacting my transportation, you're impacting my schools, you're impacting blah, blah, blah. Once upon a time, we had that. And that went away with a certain administration. And the only way it's going to come back is getting out there and voting for the people that want that will say, yes, you are impacting our beautiful state. And I don't see it happening anytime soon. You can look at what former Representative Graham had developed. It was incredible, and it was just wiped out two administrations ago.
Hi, sorry, real quick. I agree, I get it. I was on the board of that group that was institutionalizing that particular program way back when I was a student. What ended up happening was it was a constitutional amendment that got wiped out, a state constitutional amendment. And I think actually I was thinking about this morning in the shower going, huh. So what I was thinking of was we stuck a lot of information into that constitutional amendment. It included a lot of power that got taken away from us to do these kinds of things that make developers pay for their impacts on our transportation system, which I believe in theory, a lot of us do agree with, that if you're going to bring a lot of traffic like a Walmart or a large department store or even a school, you need to think about how you're going to deal with that transportation. That shouldn't be all on the taxpayer or that particular, kind of situation for people to pay for. This is a problem. We had a solution and it probably didn't go too far. That's one of the things I think, if we're going to do something like that or suggest something like that, again, we need to think about what's going to be needed in the future. How would that be better institutionalized? Because we're not going to see something like that again. I mean, this is going to be difficult to do. It's like, any of the other things that are politically driven. So, we can do a lot of stuff locally, but I really feel for that whole thing. It just broke my heart when it happened. But at the same point, we can't just going back in time is not going to happen. We got to think about what we did wrong too, because even that was not strong enough. And there are local ways that we can do things. And if we have to be the example, we can be the example, but we can't, we can't wait for the state anymore. We got to do things that are more locally driven. And I think that is, what we all hope to do. And so I'm just I totally, I get it. So I just wanted to get everybody kind of more of a background of what I think about that, as well as thinking about how we can make more impacts locally with, even with this group coming up with ideas or task force and kind of getting together and saying, this is the way we should be pushing for stronger policies. Anyway, thank you.
One more, just to give you a little more context. It got axed during the Great Recession to try and get the economy going again. Well, the economy's going. Let's bring it back.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation today. We truly appreciate it. That concludes our presentations. Thank you so much. There are several items under general information at tab 10 in your agenda packets. Our next in-person CAC meeting will be August 28th, 2024. That means that all of you do not have to bring me a cake in July. You know, we're not going to have that meeting. The remainder of the committee meeting dates are on your agenda and posted on the calendar for Metro Plan Orlando Gov. Please remember to RSVP. They're very important. And our next Metro Orlando Board meeting will be on July 10th with an early start of 8 a.m. At this time, do any committee members want to make any final comments? Mr. Pigrum.
I think Marianne knows what I'm going to ask, and I'm going to ask again. If we could please have a presentation from GOA, Orlando Airport Association, on their long-range capital plan. They plan to spend $1 billion a year on capital improvements over the next 5 years. One of them includes a new 5,000 space parking garage. They only have 22,000 on site right now, so essentially 20% increase in parking. That is somewhere between $300 and $500 million of public dollars. And that costs more than it would to connect Sunrail to the airport, which would actually potentially reduce the number of cars going to the airport, not increase the number of trips. That is going to cause more work on 417, more work on 408. So just trying to get an understanding of how their capital improvements fit into what else is going on in the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pigram. Are there any more questions? Did I miss any boards up? Please indicate by turning your nameplate. Okay, sorry. We have now come to our second public comment period. If there's any members of the public that wish to make a comment and are joining us virtually, please use your raise hand function and you will be recognized, or dial 9 on your phone keypad. We'll send you a prompt and unmute your mic. After you are recognized, please state your name and your address for the record and limit your comment to 2 minutes. Do we have anyone joining us virtually who would like to make a comment?
Madam Chair, I do not see any hands raised on the virtual side.
Thank you so much. Do we have any members in the public attending in person who wish to make a public comment?
We've received no comments, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. At this time, if there is no further business, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Great. Wow, but